The PD400X is a dynamic microphone from Maono, supporting both USB-C and XLR connections. It uses a cardioid polar pattern, meaning it picks up sound from directly in front of the mic capsule with less sensitivity in other directions. Its knob is used to adjust the gain, headphone monitoring volume, or the mix of microphone and computer audio. There is a touch-sensitive mute button while in USB mode, and a 3.5mm headphone jack for monitoring your audio. Pairing the PD400X or other compatible XLR microphones with the Maonocaster audio interface provides you with a mixing station for live streaming, podcasting, music, or other content creation. It supports a separate 3.5mm microphone input, instrument, and smartphone inputs, Bluetooth connectivity, outputs to a smartphone or tablet for mobile streaming or recording, built-in audio effects, sound pads to record custom sounds, along with knobs for audio and pitch tuning. Its built-in 2000 mAh battery claims 8 hours of battery life, but can also be plugged into an external power source. At a price of about $150 for the mic and about $120 for the interface, is this the affordable podcast or live stream setup you've been looking for? Let's check it out. How's it, Grant here? And first off, thanks to Maono for sending out their products for me to check out, review, and share with all of you. And so this is their PD400X dynamic microphone. And there's a bunch of microphones on the market that are competing at more of this middle of the road price point. So if you don't want to spend a ton of money on popular microphones like a Shure SM7B at around $400 or $500, there's microphones in this price point that are really competing for your dollar. And so this is one of those microphones. Obviously, it's a high quality build. That's the first thing that I noticed out of the box. This is very heavy and very hefty aluminum grade material here. So high quality materials that are being used for this. That's the first thing that's going to strike you as you take it out of the box. It's very well built. It's very hefty and feels very well constructed here. And so it comes with this basic base plate here that you can quickly pull off. And so it's a very heavy base plate, so it's going to keep everything nice and sturdy. But I generally wouldn't recommend it because it's just so short. But if you were in a pinch and you just needed to stand up the microphone, you can use it. But this takes a basic standard thread here, so you can actually connect this back into something like a standard boom arm. I've got their own boom arm that I'll show you a little bit later. But pretty much any standard boom arm with the standard thread will work. And that's kind of what that microphone is going to look like there. You can see the Maono branding here. I'm not too jazzed with the Maono actual label here, but I understand why you got to brand it. I do actually like this yellow kind of accent. That's pretty nice. Sets it off against the overall black look and feel here. And so let's go ahead and try to plug this thing in. So if I bring in a Type-C cable, we can actually plug it in. And so when it's plugged into USB-C, all these controls are available. So you have your tap to mute. So if you tap that, it'll go red and it'll mute the microphone. And you have your three-way knob. So this will control the actual gain. You can see it boost up or boost down. If you click in, then it'll control the actual microphone volume for when you're monitoring your microphone through this headphone jack that is on the bottom right there. And if you press it again, then you should be able to get a third setting, which is a microphone and audio quality mix. So basically being able to balance out the audio coming in from your computer source and your microphone monitoring. So you can blend in and determine how much of each you want to hear. And of course, going back again, and you can control the gain with that knob. And so again, on the bottom, you do have a tap button here. So by default, that green light is lit on the flat setting. Then you have your high pass filter in the middle, and then your presence boost over here at the third light. Press it again, they both light up for high pass and presence boost. So this is a way to physically control those settings and presets. You can do this all through their Maono Link software, which I'll show you a little bit later. But these controls that are available on the microphone are only available in USB-C mode. Once you plug into XLR, all that goes away and you'll be controlling it through your audio interface. So let's go ahead and switch over to the computer and you can hear what the audio quality sounds like with USB-C, and I'll walk you through that Maono Link software. All right, so this is the audio from the PD400X in USB-C mode, and this is the Maono Link software that you can download from their website. I'm running this on my MacBook Pro here, and so this is totally plug and play with USB-C. Once you plug in your microphone via USB-C into your computer, this microphone will show up in the software here. You'll just click PD400X, and it'll take you into the software controls. So in basic or standard mode, the software controls pretty much mirror the controls that are physically on the microphone. But if you don't want to be physically fiddling with your microphone while on a stream, then you can just do this through software, a little more inconspicuous and maybe a little bit easier to handle when you're actually live or actually recording something. And so you can see the microphone volume here, and you can control the headphone output and the gain here for your headphone monitoring. You control your monitor mix here. So how much of the computer audio do you want to hear versus the audio from the microphone monitoring? So you can control that balance here. And then you can control some basic preset tones. So right now it's on deep. You can hear what this sounds like. And we'll go into natural. And so this is what natural now sounds like. This is the natural preset setting. And we can go to a more brighter tone, and this is the bright preset here. And they have something called Legacy, so this is what that's going to sound like, Legacy tone. We'll put it back into deep, so again, deep mode. And for some reason, when recording USB-C directly into my MacBook Pro, the volume output is a little bit low, even though I crank up the output all the way in my microphone settings in the MacBook Pro settings there. But when you actually record in other software like teleconferencing software like Zoom or Google Meet, or streaming software like Streamyard, that software will automatically control the volume, and it's going to sound a lot more louder and much more understandable. But just for some reason, recording directly USB-C, it can be a little bit low like this. And you also have settings for distance. So because this is a dynamic mic, you're going to be right on top of the capsule. So you want to be as close proximity as possible. So that's why near is the default. But if you want to have it further away, less in the shot, you can put it more to mid and actually move the arm away. So this is the Maono boom arm. You can see the branding up here. And this makes it really easy to move things around. So I can actually easily push it back to more of a mid-range now. So my sound on my voice may be a little bit lesser, but with the mid, it kind of generically bumps up the gain so that you can hear with the microphone a little bit farther away from you. And I'll go into the far setting. So now it should be a little bit louder, and I can push it even a little bit farther away. So it's maybe a little bit more out of the shot if you want to do that. But really recommend it because, again, dynamic microphones, you're going to want to have it on near, and you really want to bring it in as close as possible to your mouth to get the best possible audio and effect. And again, this Maono boom arm makes it really easy. It works off tension, and so it can easily crank that tension as tight or as loose as you want, depending if you want a fixed position or be able to freely move it around like I just did. Makes it really easy to push out of the way and pull it back in when you need it. And now looking at the advanced options here, so pretty much the same kind of settings you saw before around the microphone monitoring and microphone and computer audio mix. You do have preset EQs, which is also on the bottom of the microphone like I showed you in the beginning of the video. But again, you don't want to fiddle with the mic. You can just do it through here. So this is what the high pass filter now sounds like. So this is with the high pass filter on. And now we can go to presence boost. So this is what presence boost will sound like. And then a combination of both high pass filter and presence boost. So that's what this setting sounds like. And we'll go back to this flat setting. So I generally prefer flat, but it depends on the tone of your voice and what you like to hear and how you want to represent your voice. You can fiddle with that a little bit. There's also the microphone gain right now. You can turn it up or down. This is also the knob on the microphone, but a lot easier to just do this through software. So you don't have to kind of mess around on the microphone and cause bumping sounds while you're actually recording or streaming. And then you have limiter and compressors. So limiter is just going to do exactly that. It's going to limit the upper range of the dynamic range of the audio. So if you don't want it to go above a certain decibel, that's what the limiter will do. It'll cap it there and compress the audio. And you also have the compressor, which does exactly that. It compresses the dynamic range of the audio. So the loudest and softest portions of the audio range is a little bit more closer aligned. You don't have as much wide swings. And so this is good if you're maybe a recording artist. You have songs that you're singing where you're going to belt out a much louder portion of the sound and a much more softer portion. You don't want things kind of getting blown out and peaking. You can use the compressor to limit the decibels there. And so that's the Maono Link software, the things that you can do in the settings here in USB-C mode. And so we'll come back with XLR mode and the Maonocaster. And so now that you've heard the USB-C audio, this is now the XLR output going into the Maonocaster audio interface here. And so XLR is definitely going to sound a little bit louder, a little bit richer, because you have more options with the Maonocaster itself to alter the audio here that's coming out of the microphone. And so XLR is generally a little bit better because of that, but with an audio interface like this, where you can boost up the power and the gain, add in some additional enhancements to your voice, it can sound a little bit better. And so with the Maonocaster here, you can see I have everything plugged in. So this is the XLR input from the microphone right now. And this is the USB Type-C going out to my MacBook Pro or computer. So this is the instrumental input here. So you can plug in a guitar or any other instrument that you can plug in here. The mic 1 setting is important because if you have it plugged into XLR, you want to pay attention to the type of microphone you have. So I have it on the dynamic microphone setting at the 60 decibel level. That's very important to get the most out of your microphone that you have plugged in here. You can plug in an additional mic 2 if it takes a 3.5mm headphone jack to plug in. You can have dual mics. You can also have dual mics if you have a Bluetooth connected as well. And then you do have an auxiliary in. So if you want to plug in something like a smartphone or another device to pump in audio to mix into your voice, you can do that. You can also pair a smartphone or device via Bluetooth to mix in audio from that as well. So if you want background music, that's a way to do that through either the aux in or through Bluetooth connection. This monitor here, I think this is more for like a studio monitor connection. I'm not too sure, but I think that's what that's for. And then you do have live outputs 1 and 2. So you can output 2 lines into a smartphone and or a tablet if you want to do mobile streaming perhaps. So if you want to do this on the go, you plug in a smartphone, 2 smartphones, or one smartphone and a tablet. You can stream the output from this into that device and stream that from the device out to something like YouTube, Facebook Live, or whatever else. So mobile streaming or mobile podcasting, that's how you can do that if you don't have a computer. And then again, like I explained, this is the USB Type-C out to another device like a computer to support the audio out. And then this is your DC charging. So if you want to actually have it hooked up to charge while you're using it, you can do that. The battery is 2000 milliamps and supports supposedly claimed up to 8 hours of use time. So I've gone whole live streams, about an hour usage on this, no problem. It only maybe used up one dot on that power meter. And then this controls the brightness of the lights. And then this is your obviously on off switch right there. And then on the bottom, you do have 2 headphone jacks. So output here for 2 headphones. So if you're doing podcasts, you can monitor audio from 2 different headphone sets. And then this is the audio interface itself. And so we'll walk through that a little bit. And so you can see 2 sliders here. This will control the microphone output for both mics, depending on what you have connected. So this is my first mic through XLR. And I generally have this at about 6 or 7. This is the 48 volt phantom power. So I have this on when using this PD400X. You're also going to want it for other high powered mics. If you have something like a Shure SM7B, that's the phantom power button. You should probably use it. It'll definitely boost up the audio. And I find that I need it on the PD400X. It just sounds better, provides more power. This is the Bluetooth button, so you can turn this on if you don't want to use Bluetooth. But I've got a smartphone connected to this, and I'll kind of show you how we pump in some audio and mix that into our voice a little bit later. And then you have additional controls here. So all these sound pads here on the bottom, this is going to be for recording some custom audio. So these 8 different sound pads, you can record, I think, up to 20-second clips. This A, B, and C will allow you to record up to a 1-minute clips. And then as you're playing these sound clips, if you put it on loop, obviously you can keep looping that audio. So that's how you can get some custom background or audio sounds if you want into your live stream or whatever recording you're doing. And on the bottom corner here, you have some of your reverb settings. So if you press this one right now, it's on original audio. So it's going to be just normal sounding audio. If I press it again, this says karaoke. So it's going to be karaoke kind of a sound. So you can turn up the sound effect here. So this is the intensity of the effect with this knob, and then the depth of that effect. So you can kind of hear the reverb on that. And then the amount of decay time, so how long do you want that to linger and last? You can turn it up or down. If you press it again, this is a church sound, so this is mimicking the inside of a church. So you can hear more of the reverb on that and what that sounds like in a large church type space, I guess. And then we'll press it again. And this is a hall, so I guess it's kind of like a large hall, maybe kind of close to church. Again, control intensity, decrease that, the amount of depth of reverb as well. Press it again. And this is what they call valley sounds. You can hear what the valley sound sounds like on the reverb. This is the valley reverb setting. And this is room. So what they're labeling as a room reverb. So you can try and play with these toggles and see if you want any of these reverb settings. I just tend to just leave them all off. And then I put it back to original audio. So this is how I tend to use it. You can activate sidechain. I'll demonstrate that later. So if you have some background noise or background audio that you're pumping in, you can always control that with this auxiliary knob here. Control it and push the audio down or up. But if you activate sidechain, that'll actually start to push the background audio down and boost your voice up. So you don't have to worry about balancing out the background music or audio that you're pumping in if you don't want to. You can have it automatically done through sidechain. And then music only, they say this actually will cut out the audio from a background track. So if you're pumping in music with some lyrics, they say that this will take the lyrics or the talking portion out and just kind of keep more like a instrumental soundtrack. Haven't really tried that, but that's what that's supposed to do. You have a dry mode. So if you activate dry mode, when you're actually pumping in background audio, this will just cut all the background audio. It'll cut all the effects, and this will just be straight audio from the microphone. So if you just want pure audio from your microphone, you can turn this on. When it's lit, that's dry mode. That's going to be just the pure audio from the microphone. When it's off, then it's in mix mode, and it'll mix in all the sound effects as well as any auxiliary audio that you're pumping in. And similarly, loop back, when you press this, this will record the audio coming from the USB-C connected device like your PC. So if you want to loop in audio there, you can do it that way. And this denoise I generally keep on because this is more of a background noise suppression. So it really helps just boost the audio quality of the microphone there. So I tend to keep that on. And then, of course, this upper right-hand corner, this knob controls the volume coming from the microphone. So I can turn that down and you can pump it up. I tend to have to keep it up, and then I'll just go ahead and control the microphone volume through here. And then all these knobs control more your low, medium, and high of the microphone sound. So if you want a deeper sounding voice, you can crank that all the way up and you can kind of hear the difference there. If I crank the lows all the way down, you're going to hear much more mids and the highs. It's not going to be as much depth through my voice. but I generally keep that more about maybe 3/4 of the way through. Just depends on the tone that you're going for and what your voice sounds like, obviously. Same thing with mids. You can crank up your mids or low. I just generally keep it in the middle. And then this is your highs, where you can boost the highs or lows. I'll generally keep this somewhere in the middle as well. And then this knob is to control instrument. So if you're pumping in instrument and you have that connected, you can control the volume of that connected instrument. And you have the pitch to control, obviously, the pitch sound.
So you can hear a lot higher, a lot more higher pitched voice here.
Or you can bring it down a little bit lower if you want to.
So really control pitch and depth of your sound. And then, of course, the monitor. So this just controls the plugged in headphones and the microphone monitoring. So if you want it really loud or bring your microphone monitoring down, that's how I control the microphone monitor there. And so now I'll go ahead and try to pump in some music. I have my phone connected via Bluetooth, and then we'll just start playing a background track here. And so you should start hearing that playing right now. And then we can actually control the volume of that with this auxiliary knob. So I can turn it all the way down, and you can start cranking it back up to where you want it. We can get it kind of louder. And like I said, you can press sidechain, and this will cut the background music down lower and boost my voice. So you can hear the background music go down as I'm talking and the sound of my voice increase. So this is a better or easier way to kind of balance out your voice against any kind of a side track or soundtrack that you're pumping in to mix into it. When I turn that off, you can hear the background music pump up back to the original audio volume there. So that's kind of what that sidechain does, and it actually seems to work pretty effectively there. But this is how you can kind of easily mix in some music through Bluetooth, or again, like you connect it into the 3.5mm headphone jack if you want. But if you want to mix in some music to your live stream or to your audio track or whatever you're recording, that's a really easy way to do that. And so let's go ahead and pause that. And so there's just a quick run through of the XLR connection on the PD400X connected up to the Maonocaster, and some basic things that you can do to help boost or enhance the quality of your audio, as well as introduce some additional things to enhance the quality of your live streams or podcasts. And so if you want to use teleconferencing software like Zoom along with the PD400X microphone, this is what it would sound like. It's pretty simple. You just go into the Zoom settings and you select the microphone from the input settings, and then this is what the microphone's going to sound like. The software will control the volume levels, although you can tweak that in the settings if you want. So this might be sounding a little bit louder, not really sure, compared to direct USB-C input that you heard before. But this is what the microphone sounds like with the XLR input and Zoom conferencing software. So just a quick demo here in case you're wondering what that might sound like in a software like this. And here's another example of some teleconferencing software, which is in Google Meet. And so if you want to use the PD400X microphone in Google Meet, similar to Zoom, you just go into your Google Meet settings, select the PD400X as the input, and then this is probably what it's going to sound like. This is using the XLR input, so it might be sounding a little bit better. And of course, the software might be controlling the volume of my voice, and so it could be sounding different from what you heard in Zoom, and also different from the audio samples that you heard from the direct USB-C or direct XLR input into my computer. But here's just an audio example from teleconferencing software if you want to use something like Google Meet along with the microphone. So here's an example of the Maono PD400X and Maonocaster in a live streaming software like Streamyard like this. So if you want to live stream with the microphone and with the audio interface, this is the quality of the microphone that you might expect. Of course, the software is controlling the audio quality to a certain extent, so it could sound different from what you heard in the previous audio examples, as well as from my direct computer recording. I just want to give you a live streaming example, and then I can actually go ahead and start pumping in some music. So this is what it would sound like when I pump in some music into my audio. I can turn it down with the Maonocaster. I can crank it up, and then I can use the sidechain feature to kind of control the background audio more automatically, so I don't always have to fiddle with the controls. As I talk, it'll reduce the volume of the background audio and really boost my audio to the forefront. So using that sidechain feature on the Maonocaster comes in handy, I think. And so just want to give you a live streaming sample here in some software like Streamyard in case you want to use a microphone and this audio interface setup for your live streams. So now we have the PD400X without the windscreen, so you can hear what it sounds like without that and just playing with the microphone. But that's going to wrap up the video. That's the PD400X with the Maonocaster and the Maono boom arm here. And so I think it's a pretty nice package for a little bit less money, and it's going to give you some really nice audio quality. And I think it's really good if you're just getting started into live streaming or podcasting, or just getting your feet dabbled into microphones in general. It won't break the bank while still giving you some pretty good audio quality. So let me know what you thought about the Maono PD400X combined with the Maonocaster, and of course the boom arm here. So any other questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll try to answer what I can. And as always, thanks for watching.